heart. The fact that you take the story and you're inspired by the story says a lot about you, Yosef. Keep your heart soft. That's what we need. We need soft hearts. There's a pasuk that says Hashem is going to remove the leva event, the hearts of stone from the people. Okay, and give us a leiv basar. Okay, yeshikoach. Okay, we're on the Gemara on Hayam Beis. We started the Gemara Tana Berivi yesterday. That is the art scroll. It's 5b3, where it says the Gemara. Tana Berivi Omer. Berivi said. Berivi Rashi says of the Shem Chacham, name of a Chacham, Lo Hagun Heragim. If the court did not kill the suspect, and then the witnesses were found to be Zomrim, before they killed the suspect, then Neheragim, we killed the witnesses. Hargu, if the suspect was killed, Ein Neheragim. Then we do not kill the witnesses. Ama Aviv, so his father says, B'ni lav kavachomehu, isn't it a what? A kavachomer, that if the person was, if the witnesses framed the guy, tried to kill him, and we say that what? We kill the witnesses if the court gave a verdict. So why is it that we will not kill the witnesses if the court actually gave a verdict and actually executed the guy? Right? That's the question. Good morning. The son gave the halacha, and the father questioned the son. Now the question is, some commentaries, one of the commentaries say that when the father is questioning the son, is because he wanted to put his son on his toes. Sometimes a dad asks the question not because he doesn't know the answer to the question. He asks the question to see. By the way, we remind everyone to say Birkat HaTorah before we start the learning. Sometimes the father wants to ask, you want to see if your son is on his toes. You want to see if your son knows his beans, as they say. So you ask the son the question, like you have the Gemara says, "L'chadudei." He did it to sharpen his son. That's how one of the Mefarshim learn over here. That was the intent here of the father to sharpen his son. Kill. Harger is the language of killing. That's it. Harger. Right, from the lashon of harag. Now, if they were killed. You see the language? It's like lo hargu. If the court, we are. What's your first name, Mike? So on the beginning by the Gemara again. Tana b'rivi omer lo hargu. If the court did not kill the suspect, neheragim. Then the witnesses get killed. Hargu, if the suspect was killed, ein neheragim. And then the father challenges by saying, isn't there a kal v'chomer? Now, the Gemara is going to give a reason that we don't say a kal v'chomer. That's what we said, that we don't use a kal v'chomer to punish somebody. That's what the Gemara is going to say. And yesterday we said a reason. Why is it that the court actually doesn't? Why is it perhaps the reason why the Torah says you don't kill the witnesses after the guy got executed? Right? We tried to give an explanation yesterday. One reason the Meiri says is because to protect the court. Because if you're going to kill the witnesses after the court actually executed the suspect, perhaps people lose faith in the system. There is an answer that the Ramban and the Chinuch, because if it comes out that it comes out that the court killed an innocent person, meaning if the witnesses were found to be framers after the court executed someone based on their testimony, right? They executed someone that should not have been executed. So even though maybe we don't want to, obviously, if you're gonna kill the witnesses, it's going to be much well known than if you just find them and invalidate them. So even though the second pair of witnesses comes and say about the first pair of witnesses, you were with us. Even after the court actually killed the suspect, it's going to help us to know that we're not going to trust those witnesses again, but to go ahead and actually kill the witnesses will be a much more major thing. And that Miri suggests, perhaps. The Torah doesn't give a reason. The Torah says, what do you say? People will say about the court, and therefore people are going to lose faith in the court. That is one reason that it suggests. Is that clear, Mr. Safdie? But there's another reason that the Chinuch says and the Ramban says. It says, Elokim nitzav ba'adat hadayanim. God is standing in the court, like Hashem is the Shekhinah by a minyan. There's a special divine, Hashem's divine presence in the court. If it wasn't that the suspect was deserving of death with his bad deeds, it will never have happened that the court would have given a ruling. So even if these witnesses were not the right witnesses to come and testify about this guy, even though these witnesses did not see this, but who was behind this death of this guy? Is God himself. And therefore, if it happened that God allowed this guy to get killed, that means this guy was worthy of getting killed. And therefore, the Torah does not want us to kill the witnesses for the death of someone who was worthy of death. It's like you have a concept called if someone kills a treifa, you don't kill it. Yes.
Okay. Right. So you're like Gemara is very like black and white, not black and white, but like really methodical as far as like this is the proof, this is the law, this is the way, this is not because it was L'Shem Shamayim that this guy deserved what he got, so we're gonna let him go and he's gonna treat him because that's a little bit.
So the Gemara doesn't say this. This is some of the commentaries on the matter. It's not the Gemara itself. Right, the Chinuch is major. The Ramban, these are big guns that they say who are making Ramban, Nachmanides. But Ramban, Nachmanides on the Chumash. This is what he says. If you look over there by the Chumash, this. Now, are you part of that family? Baruch Hashem, whoever family you're from, you're good. Yeah. Right. Hashem, right. But the question, but here the question is, why is it that we downstairs don't kill the witnesses for this? So the way the Chinuch explains, because it's like the witnesses killed a dead man. This man was deserving of death from some other way. Right. But this perhaps could be the reason behind this. And the Ramban says another point. Ramban says, he says, Hashem would not, here is another point. Hashem would not have given that the shoftim, the judges who are righteous people, that they should be responsible for shedding innocent blood. It wouldn't have been that Hashem would allow that the court would accept the testimony and that they would have killed the person who was really not deserving of death.
Also, the opposite is happening. This is a criminal case. So how many judges are sitting there?
23 judges. I mean, keep to kill someone, you need 23 judges.
It's not like one judge.
Right. It's not like a. No, 3 judges are monetary thing, money matters. On the capital punishment is a minimum of 23. You can have 71. We see that. We see that. Right. There might have been. But they talk about it. There ever been a Spencer Moreh? right? There's a discussion. That's what you phrase it. Maybe there's a discussion. Right. Very rarely did a court ever kill anybody.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right. Once it's 7 or once it's 70, right? It was very rare. And he says because the reason Hashem would not have allowed the righteous judges to kill an innocent guy because the mishpat l'kimhu. God is the Bekerev Elokim Yishpot. Hashem is there in such a way. Right. So that exactly. So that's just a little bit, perhaps, a little way to understand. Perhaps again, the Torah does not give a reason for it, but just this maybe could explain a little bit. Okay. The chinuch and the first thing was the chinuch and the Ramban. They're both on the same wave. The two different, the Sefer Chinuch and the Ramban al Chumash. Sefer Chinuch. See what you refer to, Mr. There's something called the Minchat Chinuch. There's a Sefer Chinuch was written by one of the Rishonim, and I recommend everyone should have it in their house. It's a 5-volume set that's on top of Mr. Safdie. If you see, I'll show you. This is the classic set. This is the classic set. Art Scroll recently put out maybe a 6-volume or something set, which I would recommend. Just start with 1 volume at a time. By 1 volume at a time, it's around 60 mitzvot. Maybe it's at least 60 mitzvot in each volume. There's 5 volumes. You got much more than 60 in each. You got over 100 mitzvot in each volume. But that was on 60 mitzvot. It's called the Sefer Chinuch. He wrote it for his son, and he wrote it for his son and his son's friends. Imagine, he wrote maybe 700 years ago. Instead of Shabbat, then he writes. Instead of hanging out on the street corners, instead let them go ahead and discuss the mitzvot of the week. Well, he was unique. He was the first one to go ahead and codify, if that's the right word, organize the mitzvot according to the parsha of the week, the parsha Shavuot. Before him, the Rambam, Maimonides, the Smag, others, they did it according to, they had Sefer Mitzvot, Aseh and Lo Aseh. They organized it with the mitzvot that said what you have to do, and things that you can't, what you're not allowed to do, right, Morris? That's how they organized it. He was unique. His chidush was that he organized it according to the Parsha HaShavua. And his style was, since he wrote it for his son and his friends, he would write the source of the mitzvah, where it's found in the Parsha of the week. By the way, in 8th grade in our yeshiva, Ramosh Fein's yeshiva, we had a rabbi who taught us the chinuch. He organized the Parsha of the week, and he said he located the mitzvah in the parsha, identified the pasuk, the source, and he would suggest reasons for the pasuk. He would suggest what's the reason behind it. So the kids should have an appreciation for the mitzvah, not just okay, you can't do this, you do this. Give them a flavor, and then he would write also a little law. Who does it apply to? Men, women, time in the Beit HaMikdash, and not. Then about 150 years ago or so, there was a Rabbi Babad. And he wrote an amazing commentary called the Minchat Chinuch. The Minchat Chinuch is where he goes into detail, into lumdus, go back, like Gemara style on the mitzvah. And great issues he brings up, and it's an amazing sefer Minchat Chinuch. So that's the. So that's a little bit about the Minchat Chinuch. So if you buy a Minchat Chinuch, included in that is the sefer Chinuch. But if you buy a separate Sefer Chinuch, then there'll be much more commentary on the Chinuch, and it'll be explained more. So I would start with one. I would first start with a volume from the Art Scroll, from the Sefer Chinuch, and start with that, and then take it from there. Okay, getting back in the.
Probably just to clarify, Rambam doesn't go into this. Usually his style is not like Rambam.
He's not as elaborate, but he also explains it. Because most of the Rambam's writings are halachic oriented, but there are things that he does have explanation on things, but it's not as vast as the Nachmanides. Nachmanides has an extensive commentary, much Nachmanides, and therefore it's more. But the Rambam has Sefer HaMitzvot, where he on the mitzvot, but it's not as extensive. Okay, back in the Gemara. Back to the Gemara says Amalo. So the son said, Limaditanu Rabbeinu. Our rabbis have taught us, meaning you, she'ein shin min hadin. We don't punish someone from a kal v'chomer. So even if you have a kal v'chomer that says that we should go ahead and punish the witnesses after the execution, but we have a law, we don't use the kal v'chomer to go ahead and punish somebody. If the Torah writes a law, and the Torah is the case of the Torah is when they attempted to kill someone. That's the case kasher zaman laso, when they attempt to kill somebody. And the Torah says in such a case, that's the case of the Torah. We kill the witnesses for attempting to kill somebody. Now you want to go ahead and learn a kal v'chomer to say even when they not only attempted to kill someone, they actually were successful in killing someone. You say they certainly should get killed. That means you want to learn a punishment from a kal v'chomer, from logic, even though logic is one of the ways we darish in the Torah. That's one of the 13 ways svara, kal v'chomer, called kal v'chomer, but we don't use kal v'chomer to punish, to kill. No, kal v'chomer teaches a law. Kal v'chomer is used to teach us a law. That means if you have two items, one is strong and one is weak. If the weak item has a certain law, so certainly the stronger guy will have that law. But that will be the general kal v'chomer. But here we want to use this logic to say if the weaker item, which is attempting to kill the witnesses, they get killed. Attempting to kill the suspect. The first pair of witnesses gets killed for attempting to kill the suspect. So you would say certainly when they actually killed the suspect, the first pair of witnesses should get killed, and they were subsequently found to be framers. They should get killed. That would be the kal in the chomer. We don't learn this type of law to kill the witnesses in the case when they actually executed the suspect from a kal v'chomer. You want to learn from this logic to kill someone, who kill the witnesses. You can't learn using this method of kal v'chomer, which is a very logical method. If I can knock out this guy, Mike Tyson can certainly knock out the guy, right? So you would say that was, I don't know what to say his name in the holy shul, but that's the you would have said that logically, right? Kal v'chomer would say that should be the law, right, doctor? But comes another law that says,
where's that law?
Where's the law for what?
That
That's the Gemara is going to prove it. That great question, Doc. That's also Rabbi. You just made a statement. Where is the source for this? Like we have a rule that we have the concept called kal v'chomer. What's the source that you can't use a kal v'chomer to punish? That's what the Gemara is going to say. Now let's look at right here. The Gemara says, we don't punish from a kal v'chomer. Titanya. We learned in the Braita. It's sourced from the Braita. Ish asher. This is, by the way, this maybe this week's parasha by Achrimot. This is that area, right? Connected to the parasha. See that, Yaron? Baruch Hashem. How do you like that? We had a great story with Mike yesterday. I don't know if you know the story of Mike. You know the story of Mike? That story. I was talking to Mike the day, I was talking to Mike the day before yesterday. Let's say today is Thursday. I was talking to him on Tuesday. And I said to Mike, if the schedule permits, every word of Torah that you learn is a mitzvah. They said if you learn, they clock John F. Kennedy at 200 words a minute. So 200 words a minute every minute is 200 mitzvot. You get 10 minutes, is 2,000 mitzvot. So I was telling him, even if you can't come on time, but come as many minutes as you come, it's amazing. So then he tells me, and now I'll let Mike take over the story. That night, Tuesday night.
Chafetz Chaim. Oh, there's a Zoom. I learned the Chafetz Chaim, which is the it talks about Lashon Hara. So every day it's like a small little paragraph or something about Lashon Hara. So that day it said you can either choose to do. It said if you say Lashon Hara, the same idea. Every word of Lashon Hara is an Avera. So if you say Lashon Hara for if you spend 10 minutes speaking Lashon Hara and it's forever 200 words a minute, it'll be exactly 150. It's 150 words a minute. If you talk for 20 minutes, the example was between Mincha and Arbi. So if you talk there if you talk Lashon Hara, you'll have 6,000 Averot or 3,000 Averot. They go or you could spend your time learning Torah, which would be 3,000 mitzvot. So it's a 6,000 swing, right? You could either go and do that or you do that. So I said, if that's not a cult to come, then.
Rabbi's trying to balance between.
That's it. Yeah. I go if I come in the morning and I learn Torah, then you just.
But you should know, in the past, they used to have time between Mincha and Arvit. Many of the shuls would have a time break, and they would learn Torah. That was the common thing. And today we don't, we got to bring it back in certain places. Okay, so the Gemara says the Tanya. We learned in the Bright. The Torah talks about certain forbidden relationships. If a person went ahead and he took his sister, the daughter of his father, or the daughter of his mother. Now, what does it mean? It's the daughter of his father. It means it's a half sister. He went ahead, he took his sister. That means he took his sister. Means it's a nice way of saying. And when he took his sister, the pasuk says, and the pasuk continues. Here we'll read the language of the pasuk. The pasuk says he took his sister, v'ra es ervata, and but they had relations. So what does the pasuk say? The pasuk says, if he took his sister and they get karet. If they had relations, they both get killed. They get minashamayim. Before 60, whatever the certain punishment, the Rambam says karet is they get cut off from the next world. They lose olam haba. So the pasuk says, for what? For sleeping with one sister. Now, when the Torah identifies a sister, it doesn't. A general sister is the sister who's from the same father and the same mother. That's a general case. And there are other cases that it's a half sister. From one parent, they're brother and sister. So the case of the Torah, when the Torah tells us about forbids us, the case that the Torah gives of forbidding someone or punishing, here's the case of punishment. The Torah, way the Torah has it, it lists the warning. You're not allowed to marry your sister. You're not allowed to marry your sister. You're not allowed to have a relationship with your sister. And then the pasuk says, and if you go ahead, then the pasuk tells us the punishments for all the different things, right? So the pasuk talks about a not common case of he's a sister from the father. You share a father, or she's a sister from your mother. You share a same mother. So the Gemara says, we only know that there's an obligation of Korei Ela Bat Aviv. If she's the daughter of your father, Shalom Batimo, but she's not the daughter of your mother, meaning you share a father, or I call it a half sister. But here you're a half sister from your father. Case one of the Torah, Bat Achoto Bat Aviv. Case one. Then the Gemara continues. Or Bat Imo, we only know if she's your daughter of your mother, she's a half sister from your mother, Shalom Bat Aviv. But you don't share a father. But how do we know a sister who's bat imo ubat aviv minai? If she's your sister both from your mother and both from your father and your mother. What did you say? Okay, we don't have to worry about DNA tests. We know if this person is married to this person and they have a child, we say that this is the father and this is the mother, right? We say rov bilot achapal. Most, we say generally who's has relation with this woman. Hopefully, it's only the husband, right? So now, aviv minayin, chas v'sholom, it should be anybody else. Aviv minayin. How do we know? Bat imo, bat aviv minayin. How do we know that if she's a full sister, this karet? If there's karet for a half sister, how do we know this karet for what? For a full sister. For relations with a full sister. This karet, the Torah says this karet for a half sister. Meaning you share a father, or the person shares a mother. Good morning, Jake. Good to see you. And they get karet. How do we know there's karet for a full sister? So you would say use kal v'chomer. That's what you would say, kal v'chomer. So the Gemara is going to say, so Talmud Lomar, we have another pasuk. We have another words. We have other words to teach us this law. Ervato, ervat achoto gila. The nakedness of his sister he revealed, he uncovered. Avono yisa. These extra words, which you don't need to tell me, it's obvious. If he slept with his sister, he revealed, he uncovered. So it's obvious. So why is the Torah writing those extra words? There's not an extra letter in the Torah. Good morning, Mr. Shetrit. There's no extra letter in the Torah. So the Torah writes the words Evrat achoto gila, so we could learn. So that teaches us that if a person slept with a full sister, he also would get this great punishment of karet, of being cut off from the Jewish people, cut off from the next world. Good morning to the Feldman brothers. Even if it's a full sister as well. So the Gemara says, Ad shelo yoma. Why do we have a special pasuk? The Gemara says we have a special pasuk that teaches us that if a person sleeps, there's a terrible sin, that he sleeps with his full sister, that they share a father and a mother, they get karet, just like the Torah, the case of the Torah, when the Torah introduces sleep, the prohibition of sleeping with one's sister, the punishment is talking about if she was a half sister. They shared a father or they shared a mother. They didn't share both parents. The case of the Torah, the open case of the Torah, talks about the not general case, a half sister. And the Gemara wants to know, how do we know that the prohibition is not only for a half sister he gets karet, how do you know for a whole sister you get karet? If she's both your sister from your father and your mother. And the Gemara says the Torah writes some other extra words, and those extra words teach us that law. So the Gemara says, what do we need? What do we need an extra words in the pasuk to teach us this? Ashelo yoma yishli bedin. I have a kal v'chomer. Good morning, Avi. Baruch haba. Sit down and make yourself comfortable. Yeshli, I have a yeshli bedin. I have a kal v'chomer. Im anash. If the Torah punishes on bat aviv, the Torah says if someone sleeps with his sister, shelo bat imo. If she's your sister from your father, but not your sister from your mother, you only share a father. Or she's bat imo, shelo bat aviv. Or she's your sister from your share a mother, and you don't share the same father. If the Torah says there's karet for such a sin, so bat aviv or bat imo lo kol shekain, isn't it obvious that if she's your sister from both your father and both your mother, she would get punished? Is that clear? I see Mr. Feldman is shaking his head. Yeah, right. It's logical. If she's your half sister, person gets karet. If she's your full sister, certainly. So the Gemara says, Halamata the Torah. So why does the Torah tell us that? Why does the Torah go out of its way to teach us? You know what? Not only a half sister, also your full sister. Because the Torah is teaching us a rule. You don't punish from a kal v'chomer. Even if the logic tells you, punish this person, you can't do it. Now, I saw a nice idea. What could perhaps be the logic behind that? Oh, why should it be that you don't punish from a kal v'chomer? If it's so obvious, if your guy gets karate, the guy gets this punishment for sleeping with a half sister, certainly a whole sister. So I saw a nice idea. One idea is that we have to remember a punishment has to fit the crime. Depending on the type of crime you do, is what the type of punishment is. A punishment is a kapara. When the Torah says, I want this punishment to fit, to be the punishment for this crime, it's going to serve as an atonement. But if the sin is a greater sin, so the punishment that's given for a lesser level sin might not fit to be the atonement for the sin. So maybe for sleeping with a half sister, the punishment is karet. Maybe sleeping for a whole sister, karet is not enough. And if it's not enough, so we don't give that, we would not have given that punishment. Like we have the concept, if a person kills someone b'shogeg, someone is out in the forest and you're chopping wood and then a piece of wood goes flying and hits somebody and the person gets killed. So the Torah says the guy has to go into exile. He has to go to Golut for a certain amount of time until the Kohen Gadol dies. What about if a person killed somebody and he wasn't warned? He wasn't warned, but he did it intentionally. He took a gun, boom, and he shot the guy. But we have a law, you have to be warned. We have a technical law. You have to be warned before the court punishes somebody, the guy has to be warned. And the guy wasn't warned. So are you going to say, okay, let's send him to exile? No, exile is not enough. Exile is not, it's like, the doctor gives you a prescription. The prescription is to fit this, I'll take care of this issue. Going to exile for a guy who killed someone intentionally, but he wasn't warned, it's not the kapara. That's not the atonement. That's not the fix. So God will deal with the fix. God will take care of it. He has many ways. So that's perhaps one reason why we don't punish from a kal v'chomer. Now, so the Gemara says, it's a general rule. General.
The only time you're cut off is if it says black and white Torah. If you do this,
but very good thought, doctor. But the Gemara says it's regarding all punishments. Punishments for sure, even lashes it would apply. Now, One Shamana, the Gemara says, okay, we learned that you don't punish somebody from a kal v'chomer based on logic. But what about azhara minay? How do we know regarding a warning? Meaning to say the following. The Torah does not give a punishment unless the Torah gives a warning. When the Torah, what's the warning of the Torah? The Torah says, don't do this. That's the warning. That's the warning. The Torah says, don't sleep with your sister. The Torah is not going to say, if a person sleeps with his sister, he gets a certain punishment unless the Torah first told you, don't do it. You have to be forewarned first. That's how God works. He doesn't just give you a punishment. He tells you don't do it first. Then you have a punishment. So even if you would have a kal v'chomer, even if logic would tell you that I should be able to infer that this is forbidden, and therefore I should already say he's been forewarned from the Torah based on this logic, but we say no. We say as hara to be forbidden, something to be forbidden from the Torah that we're going to give you a punishment is only if the Torah itself gave the warning. And you don't use kal v'chomer, you don't use logic to say, okay, if we heard the warning in A, certainly the warning applies to B, which is even a stricter case. And the Gemara is going to prove it also from the case of the sister. Because look at what the Torah says. Azhara minay, Talmud. The Torah says, Ervat achotcha bat avicha. the nakedness, meaning the sleeping with your sister, who is your sister from your father, or your sister of your mother, the Torah says you can't do it. The Torah says, don't do it. Forbidden, you're not allowed to do it. Ainly, but the Torah does not talk about, in these psukim so far, the Torah talks about a specific case. She's your sister from your father or your sister from your mother. Ainly, Ella, Bat Aviv, Shalom, it's the same idea. What? So the Torah forbade you can't sleep with your half sister from your father, half sister from your mother. How do we know you can't? Where does the Torah teach you you can't sleep with your full sister? Where did the Torah give you that warning? So the Gemara is going to bring another pasuk. Why do I need another pasuk to tell us that? If you tell me you're not allowed to, if the Torah said, don't sleep forbade, don't sleep with your sister from your father, or don't sleep with your sister from your mother. So why does the Torah need to tell me, and don't sleep with your sister from your father and your mother? You already told me you can't sleep with your half sister. So shouldn't it be obvious I can't sleep with my full sister? Why does the Torah tell me, don't sleep with your full sister? The answer is because even to learn out a hazara, a warning that is forbidden, the Torah needs to tell you black and white. In order to give you a punishment for something, the Torah is only going to do it if the Torah gave you the warning and told you black and white. Not that you could figure it out. I could deduce it. I could say, if over there you told it to me, certainly over here. No, the Torah writes it. And that's what the Gemara, that's how the Gemara concludes. Right, there's a black, right, there's a black, there might be different opinions sometimes in the Gemara itself. There might be people that might argue on this, one of these rules, but here, this is the Gemara taking, you can't punish. Right, at least our Gemara is taking that a position, yes. Our Gemara is taking a position, you cannot use a Kal V'chomer to punish someone based on logic, based on a Kal V'chomer, and you can't use that as a warning. It has to be written black and white. We should always zocha to get rewards for everything that we do, and that no one should ever have any punishments. Only blessings and bracha and slacha. Have a great day, everybody, and thank you all for joining. Yes.
So he asked the question of why it has to be so explicit.
Right.
So maybe because we're dealing with Jews, as Jews, we're trying to always find a way to get around this. So instead of saying, we understand we're Jewish, and trying to get around it, this is going to be very explicit. You can't do it.
You don't want to allow me to There's number 2 points. One is the point you brother saying is that maybe if people will question about it, people will try to say your brother saying, no, it's going to say that, and maybe they'll come up with a different idea. That's your brother. Thank you. No, I'm going to the challenge. Oh, so yeah. You bring it tomorrow?
Yes. So, I send you text with being there. Again, you can call the guy, ask him if he's tomorrow. You have to us.
Yeah. No.
So I'll bring it to think that it has tomorrow.
You know what I'm saying? All right, guys. You know what I'm saying? So, if that's how you're going to have it in
Thank you.
Yosef, have a great day and thank you for sharing the story, the amazing story before.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you for another amazing class.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Have a great